Welcome to the very first episode of the Luxury Musician podcast. I'm super excited to announce special guest Jason Nelson, who is here with us today. Jason is an awesome saxophonist from New Jersey and one of the most highly paid saxophonists in the world for private events. So super excited to share this with you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. So let's dive right in. Jason, how are you doing today?
Awesome. I'm doing awesome. Thank you. I appreciate you being here and also being the first guest on the podcast. So I
Yeah.
appreciate it. And I'm great. Great, man. Summer's been awesome.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I've seen you've been super busy. Been watching your Instagram stories.
Yeah, it's been fun over the summer, but also I am thankful that because this is my full-time job and I make my schedule, it's great to have the downtime from Monday through Wednesday and sometimes Thursdays, because I really get all of my ducks in a row, and everything's set for the following weekend when madness begins again. And if anybody's listening who is in the event industry, you know that the weekends are when we work most of the time. But yeah, it's been great, and thankfully I'll have some time off over the next few weeks, which I'm excited for. But then we
Yeah.
get right back into the thick of everything in late August, September.
Awesome. So you're going to Italy, right?
I am. Hopefully over the next few years, I'll be going, hopefully for a wedding, which I'm playing, but thankfully I'm going to spend some time off and not work and, just chill for once.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. Whereabouts are you going?
We are going to Sorrento for a week and then
Nice.
Rome for a week. So it's
Okay.
been great because while, I follow most of my couples on social media, and over the past few years, this is the hot time to be in Italy. And
Mm.
there's so much overlap between couples who have just played their weddings and their honeymoons. A couple, I was just talking to her on Instagram this morning. She just got to Lake Como and she's going to be in Amalfi when we're there this weekend. So it's
Nice.
gonna it's gonna be a good time. But I'm excited to finally experience the picturesque views that
Oh
um
yeah.
being on social media over the past few years.
Oh yeah. Amalfi, Sorrento, Capri, Positano. I love all of those places. Yeah, super picturesque. Super cool, man. You're gonna have a blast.
Thanks, man.
Let's talk a little bit about the reason you chose to actually fully detach over those next 2 weeks. Like you were telling me just before we jumped on the call, like you said you're not gonna do any work at all. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. I when I was back in the corporate world, I worked in email marketing for a retail company for a few years. And
Well,
my mindset at the time was, I'm gonna do my job and I'm gonna do it well. But anything outside of the workday, I'm not getting paid for it.
mm,
So, I didn't really work on weekends, which I was thankful for. But when I had PTO, I had PTO. But over the past several years, 4 or 5 years since owning my business, it's my passion, as I'm sure a lot of people on this call can relate to as well. I am obsessed with what I do. So that's why I find that, as the quote saying goes, you trade the 9 to 5 world for the 24/7 world. And
yep.
I love what I do because I enjoy my work and I enjoy private events and nightlife and, you know, entertaining. And I love the fact, and I'm thankful to have the freedom to work when I want and choose to be off when I want. But it's sometimes hard when I love what I do so much and I know that people are reaching out to me for questions, whether it be clients,
Mm,
other vendors, or prospective clients. I want to get back to them as soon as I can, because I know that if I was on the other receiving end, I would want someone to communicate with me quickly. So I always find that when I'm traveling, sometimes I like to get back to people and respond to people. But this
yeah.
trip, especially because of just the way of life and the pace of life in Italy, I'm excited to take a step back for a few weeks from work and just experience the sweetness of doing nothing, as they say.
100%. Yeah, that's actually, it's funny you said the pace of life in Italy, because that's something I noticed. Like when I went to Italy, people just are chilling, man. Like I went to Lake Como and you can just tell, like these people, it's like they're not hustling, they're not rushing from place to place. It's like they live in one of the most beautiful places on the planet. And I think when when I'm gonna have my big wedding party, we're gonna do that in Lake Como most likely as well. And but people say like in America people live to work, but in Europe, people work to live, you know? And I really think that that's true. It's something that I've noticed out here in America. We work our asses off all the time, you know? Whereas in Europe, people have a much, much more slow pace, like chill way of life. So yeah, man, I hope you'll be able to soak up some of that peace and serenity. And so how are you kind of taking that time off? Do you have anyone stepping in for you, handling things whilst you're gone, or are you just letting people know, hey, I'm just going to take 2 weeks off?
Yeah, great question. So, I knew that because right when I get back, I have several weddings over the next few weeks after that. I know that a lot of the times either planners or the couples themselves will reach out to me a month leading up to the wedding to either finalize payment or to finalize last minute details.
Yeah.
Because I play piano too. Um,
Mm.
I'd say I'd say it's around once a month, sometimes more than once a month, which I'm playing a ceremony for on the piano. And because of that, it requires a little bit more planning, especially getting their songs that they want.
Mm.
And if, let's say, I don't already know the song, if it's not one of my recommendations that I give them, I need some time to learn it.
Yeah.
So, because of that, I reached out to pretty much every single client I have from the end of August to mid September to just be like, hey, not going to be, checking my inbox for a few weeks. I would love to, finalize everything now. So, over the past few weeks, I hopped on calls with a lot of my clients that I have after Italy just to
Okay.
make sure that everything's squared away and they know. And I'm thankful that all have been really understanding and have been like, oh no, Jason, that's awesome. Enjoy your trip.
Yeah.
We'll talk when you come back. So yeah, but the way my mind works is there's no way that I would feel comfortable and at peace um just leaving people in the dark without
Right.
letting them know beforehand.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Love that. Very prepared of you. Awesome. So, yeah, let's talk a little bit about your background. And I think a lot of people who go into your profile may not actually realize that you play piano. So it'd be cool to get into that a little bit later. I mean, I actually didn't realize until fairly recently that, you do that too, which you're also mega talented at, which is awesome. So it'd be fun to talk about that. But let's start off this call with a little bit of like background info on you, how you started getting into music, perhaps things that you did before you started your own business. You mentioned you were kind of doing like email marketing and stuff, which is super different from, being a being a private event saxophonist. And yeah, also for the people who don't know about who Jason is, definitely go follow him on Instagram at Essential Jason Nelson. And yeah, Jason was you had an article on which platform was it recently? It was
It was as of yesterday was Business Insider. And
oh
the
right,
one before that was back in the spring.
nice, that's awesome. Yeah, and that was that you're doing close to 200K as a private event saxophonist. Yeah,
Close to, yes. I'm
awesome.
I'm thankful that I um, was presented with the opportunity to be featured because of the platform that I use for my booking portal, and that booking portal has been working with different PR um, companies, a PR company, to try to spread the word for the booking platform.
Okay,
And that's kind of how I got those press inquiries.
Wow. Love that. Awesome, man. Cool. Yeah. So let's dive in and just tell us a little bit about um, some background info. When did you first start playing music? Like, let's go all the way back to,
Oh,
little
cool.
5-year-old Jason and take it from there.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm very fortunate that I grew up in a pretty musical family. My parents, while they weren't necessarily the most talented musicians, um, a lot of my extended family is. And from a young age, I listened to a ton of classical music, the baby Mozart, a ton of Broadway tunes. And then when it came time to start taking lessons on the piano, I took lessons, private lessons when I was 8. And around that time was when in music class, when we would start to sing songs and the teacher would kind of teach us the notes. And I remember my music teacher called me up in front of the class because she kind of had an inkling about me. And she had me face the class while I couldn't see the piano. And she would play notes and I would be able to tell her and recite what that note was. And then she was the first person to say, Jason, you have perfect pitch.
Wow.
So
Nice.
from that, this fast forward a few years later to when I was in 5th grade band, I picked up the saxophone as we got a chance to choose an instrument, and I learned how to play the saxophone. And I also learned, I had already known how to read treble clef, but I got even more familiar with sight reading. And around that time was when I would start to play just for fun by ear. I would on the saxophone, play Star Wars or the
Yeah.
national anthem or just any tunes that I recognized. So I did that for a few years. I was in my school on wind ensemble, and around 2007, 2008 was when YouTube started becoming pretty popular. And
Mm,
although in school band and my private lessons for piano, I learned a lot of the fundamental music, which is classical and jazz. That's what they teach you. I started going to dances with my friends in middle school, and I grew up in the era of all the Chris Brown, the Lil Wayne,
yeah.
Apologize by One Republic,
Right.
um, all these just great throwbacks, but at the time they weren't throwbacks.
Mm,
And I really wanted to play along to those songs. So I saw, because YouTube started getting popular, there were a lot of pretty popular YouTube cover artists of all these songs. And I would consume them and think, I wanna do that. So
yeah.
for many years, I started, because I listened to mainstream pop music and a lot of alternative rock, I became obsessed with not necessarily playing what we played in school, but I wanted to play what my friends knew and listened to so I could relate. And I think, getting a little bit off topic, but I think a common issue that happens in school bands is that
Mm,
kids are there's definitely people who are passionate about classical and jazz, but there's a lot of people who, you know, might resonate towards another type of music,
for
and
sure.
it doesn't get as appreciated. And growing up in school, being in bands is sometimes not the popular thing to do. So
Right.
I always, even though I had these musical talents and people knew that I was good at instruments, I never really felt a sense of belonging because
Right.
it kind of differed from my life outside of music.
Yep.
And it wasn't until I went away to um, college, university. I went to Rutgers and studied marketing. I also would, on the streets just for fun after going out to the bars, pick up the sax and play along just to what was popular. Post Malone, the Chainsmokers, just a bunch of random stuff that we would listen to while we were partying. And it was then that I finally felt accepted for my musical talents because I was doing something that society deemed as cool, in
Right.
quotes. So that's when I started feeling more confident in what I did. And at the time I was posting on Instagram the 15-second clips that Instagram used to limit you to.
Oh,
I
okay.
had like a covers channel where I would
Right.
post popular songs on either the piano or sax. And then a few years later, because I had that account, my friend knew that I played the piano and she asked me to play at her sister's wedding for cocktail hour. And that was 2019. And that was my first ever wedding when I was I was working in the marketing industry and had no um, desire nor, I guess, idea of how I could make it a full-time career. But it was at that wedding that I played the sax along with the DJ just for fun, but not even because she paid me, just because I felt comfortable doing so. And I realized that there was such an overlap between wedding music, which I didn't really know at the time because I was much younger and didn't go to a lot of weddings. Wedding music and party popular music, it went hand in hand. And I was like, oh, I know all these songs. I
Right.
can play along to these songs. And
Yeah.
then I started reaching out to all these DJ companies in my area and realizing that there was a huge demand for live music with DJs, and that combination and that hybrid that I'm sure a lot of people here are familiar with. And I'm thankful that in my greater New York City area, it's a pretty highly sought out component for a wedding, especially through DJ packages. So
Right.
kind of spent several years trial and error of experiencing events, private events, and nightlife, uh, bars, clubs, brunches, playing along with DJs, and really finding what worked for me, and not necessarily copying anybody else, but being influenced by others, whether it be DJs
Hmm.
or other entertainers or other wedding vendors in general, and kind of just getting more comfortable and then finding what works and what doesn't, and really just taking that and using that over the past few years to grow my business.
Awesome, man. So yeah, I have a couple questions. So firstly, how old are you currently?
I'm 29 and I'm turning 30 in a few months.
Nice. Congrats, man. That's a big one. So I
Thank you.
think that that's super inspirational for a ton of people listening. You know, you hit close to that 200K mark at, I guess this was when you were 29 or 28. First time when we got that article by Entrepreneur. Yeah,
Yep.
that's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And in terms of the timeline, so when you finished studying, how old were you then when you started doing the email marketing? Did you just go straight from like studying into email marketing?
I graduated Rutgers Business School when I was 22. I worked I worked a job in the city. My first job out of school was in Manhattan, working in the media advertising industry. I didn't last long at that because the commute was way too far. Uh, wasn't the right industry for me. But shortly after that, around I think I was 23. I switched to working for a retail company in the New Jersey suburbs, close to where I grew up, and I am thankful for that job because one, I definitely enjoyed it and I enjoyed the people, but the work-life balance was so great. And I really owe it to, I don't know if I was at a higher paying and fast-paced job in a city at the time that I discovered playing events. I don't think I would have had the
Right.
time
Mm,
to spend working on my business. And I was super thankful that my manager let me leave early on some Fridays when I had weddings and other parties lined up. And it just really worked out, especially during COVID when most of the world was shut down. I was fortunate to work from home and have a pretty flexible schedule that I used the downtime of the world to get a lot of my, ducks in a row and work on the admin stuff, work on posting content,
mm,
work on getting more gear. And
right.
uh, yeah, that was trying to think of how old was I in 2020, 25, I think, 26, something like that.
Yeah. That's really interesting. So during COVID, you weren't like freaking out like the rest of us. You were kind of like doubling down and actually working on the business and preparing for the time when things were going to be better. Sounds like.
Yeah, I have the most, I guess, unique COVID story. I'm sure everybody has a story, but I 2020 was one of the most memorable and happiest years of my life, and I
Wow.
feel almost guilty saying that. And the
Yeah.
year has been progressively better,
Mm,
but I really look at 2020 because it was I really put everything in perspective of just how lucky I was. While I knew a lot of industry professionals who were out of work, while I was kind of just getting started, I was thankful to have the steady paycheck,
mm,
um, and use the downtime from events to do things like just kind of explore the possibility of randomly posting things on TikTok. I would
right.
do now I pretty much devote all of my TikTok videos to um, clips from events
Mm,
or, you know, educational tips about playing events or something like that. But
right.
back in 2020, when TikTok was first starting to blow up, I would post the most random kind of cringy videos of me playing. So I used to, I around the Hanukkah time, I posted because I'm Jewish and I posted a video one a day of playing a different Hanukkah song on the piano. And then
Oh, yeah.
I started to get a huge surge in followers from Israel and a lot of like niche Jewish related accounts. And
Right.
I was a little bit I guess while it was cool that I was doing that, I was thinking in my head, whoa, this is not where I want my followers to be, who I want to book me for events.
Right.
And
Right.
then over time, the algorithm kind of reset and bottomed
Yeah.
out. Uh, but yeah, 2020 was my trial period. And then as we know, 2021 was just crazy with events when everything started to
Mm,
get normal.
right. Yeah. 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 100%. So you kind of got into the event stuff and really took music seriously around 2019 and then COVID happened. Is that right? Or yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And at the time, I my focus for events was, especially if, let's say, I was playing a private event and I brought my own equipment and backing tracks and things like that, I would focus a lot on pop songs and what's relevant, whether it be The Weeknd or Post Malone or Khalid, Ed Sheeran, things like that. And I'd say while I do focus on pop stuff now, my focus over the years, and I'm sure we can relate, has been house music
Mm,
because I mean, house music has blown up in popularity all over the world, but especially in my New Jersey, New York City area, there's a lot of brides and grooms who are looking to bring. We have a bar down the Jersey Shore that's popular called DJs, and it's like if you ever watched the Jersey Shore, think as stereotypical as you can, but it's so it's such like a fun atmosphere because of how much big room house music that they play. And a
right.
lot of brides and grooms in the tri-state area are looking to replicate that vibe at their wedding. And I'm thankful that there's a lot of DJs in this area that deliver and play a lot of those songs and mashups and remixes, which is the music that I love playing to. So that's kind of how over the past several years I've I guess, gravitated my brand and moved my brand to that high energy component because I don't really have to fake it. That's just what I love to listen to.
Yeah.
So I don't focus as much on the individual notes being played on the dance floor. I focus on just the overall experience because while music is so crucial to weddings and private events, and most people look back and remember the music and the food the most, they remember the most the feeling that they had.
Yeah.
Well, my job is to try and give them the time of their life. And I
Yeah.
found for me personally, um, this might not be for everybody, but for me personally, I I guess, just try and just make people feel good in whatever way I.
Love that. I love that 100%. And that's very evident from watching your Instagram videos and stories. Super high energy. And I think that I read somewhere that you actually um, were a dancer at some point. Did you study dance or
That's hilarious. No, I have
no?
not studied dance, but
Okay.
I often call myself a motivational dancer, um, or bar mitzvahs.
Right.
But I have a sax around my neck because this happens sometimes, and you can't help it. But sometimes instead of I don't always like to be the show. I want the show to be everybody having a dance party together. But
Sure.
sometimes naturally it just happens. People don't really know how to react around me, so a
Yeah.
big circle will kind of just form,
Yeah.
and I want the circle to close. I want all the gaps to close so people don't stand. They dance with me. And I just
Mm,
enhance them dancing. But in those moments, I feel like a motivational bar mitzvah dancer because I'm waving my hands to try to bring people in.
right.
Um, and sometimes they know what I'm asking, and sometimes they don't, and sometimes I'll hop off for a sec, and then they'll naturally start to gravitate again together. But it depends on the party.
Right. Okay. So you have not taken dance lessons or dance classes or anything like that.
Definitely not. I have a lot
Okay.
of friends who have danced competitively their whole lives.
Okay.
But I wouldn't consider myself a skilled dancer, but I love to dance. And when I go out with my friends, especially over the past 10 years at whether it be parties back in college or bars, I love to dance and I love to just make a fool out of myself in the most like just fun way of just not caring,
Right.
what other people think. And
Love that.
I've kind of brought that vibe to weddings because I'm the guy that will go on my knees and, point at the ground or point at the sky or point at someone and scream out words. But that's thankfully that's, you know, I know that my brides and grooms, because they've either seen me at a wedding before or have seen me on social media, they're
Yeah.
also looking for that element too.
100%. Yeah, that definitely makes you very unique and you have ways of making yourself stand out. I've noticed that in terms of your clothing as well, you definitely go the route of what could be termed peacocking. You're wearing extravagant blazers and jackets, stuff like that, like gold. Um, where do you get those from?
Honestly,
Or is that a secret?
it's honestly, it's a combination between Amazon and other websites.
Wow. Okay.
But I found that it's not just about the exact piece of clothing that I get; it's also the fit. Um,
Mm,
so I've gotten everything tailored and tapered to me.
nice.
And I don't know if this is necessarily a secret or not, but uh, I my black pants that I wear are Lululemons. Because it's their commission style. I think that's what they still make. And it looks almost like a dress pant, but it feels like you're wearing an athletic Lululemon pants. And with the amount of jumping and I guess
Yeah.
sliding that I do on the dance floor, I don't think I could imagine doing that 3 times a weekend in traditional black suit pants. So that's mainly what I.
Wow. That's super interesting. Lululemon. Wow. Okay. Pro tip right there. Wear Lululemon to
Yeah,
private events.
Lululemon, if you're listening, let's do some sponsored content.
There we go. Exactly. Awesome. Okay. Super interesting, man. And like, do you ever feel like, you turn up to a wedding and the energy just isn't there? What do you do in those situations where it's maybe not a super high energy party? People maybe haven't really been drinking, or they're just super socially inhibited and awkward. How do you handle those situations?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it definitely does happen.
Yeah.
But I think that, and I'd say I've realized that 75% of people who book me because they see my energy and they know that their guests also
Mm,
are going to be energetic. So they want
mm,
one big giant party. I get that a lot. When people's main phrase that they use is, I want one big giant party. But I'd say 25% of people might have a feeling that their guests might not be the most extroverted. So they think, uh, they look to me to hopefully bring that energy. And
right.
sometimes it is tough because as much as I can hop around, I feed off guests, not
Sure.
necessarily the other way around. So in those moments, honestly, because as much as I want to live in the moment and enjoy what I do, and I do most of the time, it's not about me. It's about them. If you're getting married, hopefully you're having the best night of your life. So I think that even my view of dance floors, because I've played so many crazy parties, might be a little bit skewed, because when you ask the bride and groom, even if they didn't have the most quote unquote lit wedding, they're going to still say, "Oh my God, Jason, you were amazing. This was the
Yeah.
greatest thing ever." So I'd say I don't want to say I fake it in those moments, but I try to take off my own biases and just kind of live in the moment, smile, still do what I do, but maybe not be as quote unquote obnoxious. Uh,
Right. Right.
you know, not every I've only it's only been like once that I've taken my shirt off, but at a wedding. But that was only because the groom and his groomsmen did, and they were egging me on to do it. And I was just like, all right, whatever. It was the
That's
right
so
vibe. But
funny. I've never heard of that before.
in the in the moments where it's not necessarily the vibe for that, I'm not going to do it. I'll gravitate my energy towards the vibe of the party. So,
Mm,
um, and sometimes it gets better too. It might be that the first dance set right after the first dances might be a little bit on the weaker side. And then they might just need a little bit more liquid courage. And then after dinner, they're ready and they're loose.
right. Yeah, 100%. That's a pretty funny story about taking your shirt off.
Yeah.
Love that. Definitely the first time I've heard that. Um, okay, cool. So let's talk a little bit about pricing. So what kind of prices do you typically charge for, events? Where does it start? What can it go up to? What's the most you've ever charged for an event, whether that's, in the States or internationally?
Yeah, I'd say my average over the past 2 years and moving forward is anywhere from uh as little as like 2,000 to as most as 5,000. And I'd say my average, the sweet spot for this year, and then as we enter next year, has been 3,000, around that for 4 hours, playing along with the DJ. And next year it's going up a little bit above 3,500. Um, and I've charged at most a little over 5,000 if you include travel costs
Mm,
and things like that. Um, because I also play the piano too. And in
right.
addition to my reception bookings, which is the main thing that I offer, I also pair that with ceremony piano, cocktail hour piano, or cocktail hour sax as well.
Got it. Got it. Got it. That makes sense. And so you mentioned, so typically now it's around 3K for a reception, right? And does that
Correct.
include the dinner or is that just the party?
A lot of the times I'll include dinner, but I haven't in years played a full dinner set. Like I
Right.
remember when I used to get booked by DJ companies years ago for, let's say it was $500 during 2020,
Mm,
I would play for 30 minutes during dinner.
right.
With the amount of, energy that I give during dance sets,
Yeah.
I can't afford to, do that with my lungs and play the whole dinner set. So usually I'll
Right.
include 2 to 3 songs, sometimes do, and I'll usually ask the couple what they want, like what kind of vibe they want during dinner.
Mm.
And if they want the more mellow vibe, I'll play some easy listening, romantic type backing tracks. But some people now want a show and more high energy. So I have a 12-minute hype mix that I made that is basically, it starts with Jubel and then it goes
Yeah.
into some deep house remixes of popular songs.
Okay. Wow. And do you get people like up and dancing during the dinner? Is that the goal?
Sometimes it honestly depends on the DJ
Right.
because I work with so many. Some um, have told me, no, Jason, we want everybody to be sitting and eating during dinner. We don't want
Right.
people up.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then sometimes if I'm playing something that's got a crazy beat, people will get up out of their seats. And I know in the UK it's a little bit different during dinner, right?
But
There's
yeah, I mean, yeah, in the UK, we do get people up and dancing. It definitely does happen. I mean, a very popular thing in the UK, which I don't know if this is as popular in the States. I haven't seen it myself. Is like the singing waiters. Where someone will have like a dramatic fall midst dinner, and then they'll get up and start singing. I love that. It gets me every time. I have not seen that in the States. Have you experienced that over here?
I haven't. I've experienced a lot of the times if let's say I'm not playing during dinner, a couple will hire another entertainer, whether it be
Right.
a crooner like a Frank Sinatra kind of old school kind of sounds,
Mm,
playing all the singing all the classics.
yeah, yeah,
Sometimes I work with electronic violinists who will do a show during
yeah.
dinner. And then I'd say the majority of the times the DJ will just play a dinner mix that they have while we go and eat in the limited
100%.
time that we have before they reset and we get everybody on their feet.
Yeah. Yeah, those singing waiter experiences are like hilarious. You literally have someone like come in and just have this dramatic, massive fall, and they typically have like a tray with food on or something, and it just goes flying, and all the heads turn, and it's just like, okay, here we go, and then they'll pull out a wireless microphone from their back pocket and start singing, that's amore or something like that, and everyone gets up and starts swinging their napkins. So it's really cool. It's definitely like a cultural difference, but yeah, I mean, definitely towards the last few years that I was performing in the UK, I started getting people up and dancing during the dinner set as well. With more like sing along type songs, R&B songs and pop songs that people would sing along to and start getting up and vibing to. But typically we do like a house song for the grand entrance as they're coming in, something really upbeat. But never really during the dinner did I go for the hype mix thing. So that's super interesting and funny, but very unique. Do you ever find that kind of like falls flat a little bit though, if people are having their food and you're like trying to hype people up?
Yeah, I'd say so. I made that mix back in the uh, winter, and I haven't played it that often. I'd say I remember the first time I did it. It was at a gorgeous ballroom that's pretty popular in Jersey. So the presentation when I played was perfect because everybody was sit. I'll wait till towards the end of dinner because if people are like, kind of just out of their seats or there's little kids running around the dance floor, it's not gonna be the right vibe.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
remember the first time it went over so well, and everybody was just so, I guess like mesmerized and I want to say they were Greek. So at one point, an uncle or grandpa came up and threw money over me and that was the best by far. I'd say there's been one or two times that, whether the DJ didn't make the music loud enough because it's still,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll kind
Yeah.
of be like background, but
Mm,
those songs are not background songs.
no.
So
No.
there's been
Yeah.
times that I've done it in like gorgeous, huge ballroom and I won't really get claps or anything. I'll kind of just be like, oh, it's more so just like, oh,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
did it.
Happens to the best of us. Yeah, I think it's good to hear for, people listening. It's like, even you who is, one of the top like performing saxophonists for private events probably in the world still has those moments where, it falls kind of flat, and that's okay, right? Because at the end of the day, you can control what you can control, you can give your best performance, and then the rest is down to other people. So just kind of got to focus on doing your best, right?
Definitely. And I'm curious, have you found that I, hypothesis that I have,
Mm,
and yes, there's some gray areas, but hypothesis I have is when guests are the most appreciative and the most kind of in awe of me, it's when they haven't seen it many times at weddings before. They haven't seen what I mean, the DJ sax combo, and especially a
mm.
sax player that's not necessarily standing in front of the DJ booth, but that's jumping up and down with the guest. So I'd say
Yeah.
when people don't experience it, let's say it's a crowd who isn't used to extravagant weddings, and they
Mm,
might be in a different part of the country, or a different part of New Jersey, and might not experience the lavish stuff as much. They
right.
appreciate it more, but the
Yeah.
crowds that see it all the time
Mm,
appreciate it, and they love to dance with me, but they aren't as surprised to see me. Ha-
right.
Have you noticed that in Cali?
So what I've noticed is like there's definitely like a cultural difference between performing in, say, the UK and then performing in the States. And then there's also cultural differences between, in the States if I'm doing, a fully just like kind of standard American wedding, or like an Asian wedding. Um, you know, I've noticed, for example, Asian weddings, people go absolutely crazy. That's something that they love the sax like so much, and they'll get up during the dinner and they'll be like singing along, and just that's something that I've noticed. Like the enthusiasm is awesome. Um, and in the UK, people are a lot more chill. They're a lot more like laid back, and maybe it's because, like you said, they've kind of seen it before. So I still feel that in the States, the DJ sax combo is actually less known and less common than it is in the UK. And, I started doing DJ sax more than 10 years ago now. And I was honestly one of the first people to start doing that. And I think that I really kind of set that trend that now everyone kind of jumped on the boat, which is pretty funny to see. And even like memes being, made about saxophonists starting to DJ now, which is just hilarious to me. Um,
Mhm.
because, back then no one was doing it. But that was something that I think at that time it actually took some getting used to for people, to the point where they would kind of they would have heard of it and they're like, "Oh, okay, this is cool." Like, "Oh, we're supposed to dance with him." It took a while to kind of spread that awareness of this new thing. Um, so yeah, I think it's a combination of like culture and potentially awareness. And sometimes if it's like super brand new, people will be like, "Oh, what do we do? Like, what's going on? This is so confusing." Sometimes people don't even clock. They're like, it takes them half the night to realize that I'm also the DJ, not just the sax player, which is funny to me. Um, but yeah, I definitely see your point. If it's something like brand new, then sometimes people are just like totally amazed, and I do hear that sometimes as well, where people are like, "Wow, I've never seen something like that before. That was amazing and unique and special." Um, so it's funny to me when people say that, because I'm like, well, I've been doing it for 10 years and there's a lot of other people doing it now,
Yeah.
but it still is, I think it kind of still is a niche thing to have, a sax player with a DJ, or even a violinist with a DJ. I think that's even less common here in the States, or in the UK, which is something that is probably going to become more popular over the next few years. But I think we live in a great time where, we are able to do that, because I think maybe 15 years ago, I don't know how popular that would have been. So we definitely came up at the perfect time where this started to become really popular.
Def definitely. How often do you like what's the percentage at weddings that you do where you're focused on DJing versus playing? And do you I forget, do you have an assistant who you
Oh
bring
yeah,
who when you're
yeah,
out will be mixing so you don't have to
100%. So I typically bring a team of around, you know, typically around 3 assistants. So I'll have one guy will be controlling the lights because I bring a full on light show for my clients. We have moving heads, we have up lights, we have cold sparks. Sometimes we bring the dancing on a cloud machine. And that's all controlled using what's called a sound switch controller. I won't go too technical here, but basically that's all controlled to respond to the music. And it's controlled by my lighting tech. And then I'll have a videographer um, who will be just capturing all the content throughout the night on a phone and a professional camera. And then I'll also have someone helping out with the music side of things. So I love to DJ and I love to control the whole kind of flow of the night and basically maneuver the music based off how the crowd is reacting throughout the entire night. That being said, if I am going to go play sax on the dance floor and I want to stay on the dance floor for like 10, 15 minutes nonstop, then my DJ will take over and I'll kind of say, hey, look, can you go from this track into this track into this track? Um, but most of the time, I like to do both because that's just what I'm used to. That's how I started. When I started off, I didn't have an assistant for the first couple of years. I was just doing everything on my own. But bringing in assistants just reduced the stress of more so setting up all the gear and packing it all down. The actual performance itself, I guess I get a kind of adrenaline rush from needing to do both, from like running onto the dance floor, running back to the booth. And I don't know if you have ADD, but I definitely do, and a lot of people that I work with seem to. It seems to be like a DJ thing for some reason. We just love to you know, DJ tracks quickly and collect a bunch of different tracks and stuff. So that works really well for my ADD brain, where I'm kind of just like running onto the dance floor and then running back. So yeah, it's really fun. But I think there is definitely something to be said for having an assistant there is important, so that I don't feel majorly pressured to run back after every transition, so that I can spend a little bit longer on the dance floor. But I'd say most of the events I do, I'm performing probably about maybe 30 to 50% of the night is playing sax, and then the rest of it is DJing. But of course, I'm DJing seamlessly throughout the event.
that's awesome. And I'm sure it's super helpful to have assistants so you know that if you need help with something, whether it be, a cable lighting issue kind of thing, you have full control over having help when you're focusing on another area, which is cool. And I'm also thankful that because I work alongside DJs, a lot of DJs in my area have large teams that they bring because of how big of production they're doing. Um, so I have a lot of help too, and not necessarily all the time on fixing my individual gear, but more so making the night flow. And I'm very fortunate for that. And that's honestly one of the main reasons why I haven't decided to start DJing for events yet. Not because I don't think I can, but I trust that there's a lot of awesome teams out there who know what they're doing. And also, I have a tremendous amount of respect for all the work that goes into the setup and breakdown too.
Oh
And
yeah,
it's a huge responsibility because
for
they
sure.
we say that music can make or break the event, but no one realizes it until it comes time for their wedding, just how
Mm,
important it is.
yeah, 100%. I mean, Yeah, it is. I'm guessing as well, the weddings that you're performing at, probably, pretty huge DJ setups, especially when you get into the bar mitzvah type events. Those DJs are bringing tons and tons of speakers and stages and elaborate lighting and all that kind of stuff. So it's a huge setup. And for me, there's no way I could do the type of weddings I'm doing now on my own. I need a team of at least two, preferably three or even four people. And finally now, you know, I've got to the point where I don't need to actually typically help out with the setup or the pack down. My team will just go to the event, set everything up for me, and I can just show up and do the performance. And that allows me to have the most energy to just focus on, doing what I do best, and they can handle the rest. So I don't need to stress about that because there's a huge amount of stress involved in that. But you DJ as well, is that right? I know that you produce music a little bit here and there. Are you looking to get into DJing potentially at some point down the line? Or
Yeah, so I and one of the reasons that I got very interested in dance music in the first place was I was a freshman at Rutgers when Big Room House was really popular, and I bought a little turntable for myself, and I would just kind of use virtual DJ was the program, and I because I have perfect pitch and I understand key signatures
Hmm,
and whatnot, I used to just become obsessed with trying to do what a lot of DJs and producers in my area do, which is make all these mashups and edits. So
yeah,
I've made a lot of those just for myself and my friends over the past few years. And I just worked with a DJ in my area who's going to he puts out them regularly. So hopefully in the next few months that'll be out. And I haven't fully decided where I want to go in terms of that, because I know that if, let's say, I DJ'd two, it would be a lot more responsibility. And I'm very,
100%.
very
Yeah.
thankful that in my line of work, while I quote unquote am essential to your event, given my name, if let's say uh, I bring multiple saxophones usually, but let's just say everything failed on my system, the wedding would still happen. And it gives me a lot of anxiety right now to think about a
Right.
world where if something malfunctioned, if the power went out, whatever the case might be, is that's on me or my
Hmm.
team, so
Yeah.
haven't yet made the decision, but I know that I am really passionate about uh, the mashups and edits that a lot of DJs use. And because I listen to a lot of mainstream house music, the newest tracks that come out, I'm constantly thinking about the key signatures of them and just thinking, oh, wow, this would be great over this pop acapella. And doing stuff like that. And I'll also use that and incorporate that into riffs on the dance floor too with my sax.
Yeah. Mashing up like different melodies. That's cool. I like that. That's definitely a pro tip right there. That's awesome. Awesome, man. So in terms of the number of events that you're typically doing a month, how many does that, what's kind of the average there? And I guess touching on your point of having way more responsibility if you were DJing. I think the nice thing about just playing sax is that, you can just rock up, do the gig, leave. You don't have to worry about setting up all the gear, packing it down. And it's a lot less stress for sure. So you're able to presumably do more events that way. So yeah, what does that look like on you mentioned that, Monday to Wednesday, you're typically free. Do you often get booked like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday? What's the deal there?
Yeah, I always start out with less events. Let's say, you know, um, 6 a month, maybe 8, something like that. But as we get closer to the event actually happening, um, I'll get last minute inquiries, and sometimes they might be for a little bit less of a price if it's through, let's say, a planner or something like it. It depends on the exact circumstance, but if
Right.
I have the date available and I haven't necessarily um, locked myself into another plan uh, socially or personally. Um, I'll sometimes take last minute stuff. So I will end up having Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I look at it like, if I have the time and I have the energy, I'll do it. And then I'll just recover again on Monday. And,
Yeah.
Thursday weddings are definitely really popular in my area.
Oh, wow.
Well, I don't do them all the time. I'd say probably like 5 a year, something like that. Over the next few years, though, my goal is to play even less events,
Right.
and to, with that, find the couples who can afford a larger budget so that I can bundle. Um, yes, I'm working more, but I can make more doing piano,
Mm,
cocktail or ceremony piano, cocktail hour piano or sax, and then the full reception. So working more at each event, but I don't necessarily have to work on as many dates in a month.
yeah, 100%, 100%. That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about, what I do is that, I can charge between say 8 to 15K. So it kind of means, 1 to, you know, 3 events depending on how much, the events are is pretty chill. Um, so, I don't have to be going out and doing like 10, 12 events. But of course, the events that I am doing, if it's a 15K event, it's going to be like the full wedding. It's going to be, ceremony, cocktail, dinner, party, possibly an after party. There's lighting involved, there's multiple assistants, there's, travel, Airbnbs. So it definitely adds up. But for me, I like that in a sense. It's like, okay, I have to work really, really hard for one day, but then I have way more time to chill and relax throughout the rest of the month. Um, but there is a lot of stress on that one day. So I guess just comes down to picking your poison, really. It's like a little bit here and there, or like a lot at one time. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of like feels like whenever I'm doing a gig, it's like I'm training for the Olympics, weeks before, just getting ready, preparing myself mentally for that. So it's a lot of stress for sure. How long do you typically perform for when you do a reception? You mentioned you do a little tiny bit during the dinner, and then how long is the dancing typically?
It depends on the wedding, because timelines differ and every wedding planner, has a different, um, I guess, opinion on it. Should it be everything up front? And I mean everything in terms of the intros, the first dances and parent dances, the toasts, and then the seated dinner, cake cutting right after the seated dinner, but like really short, so that there's a long 2 hour dance set. Or should there be some formalities up front, a 30-minute dance set before dinner, get everybody seated down, and then a little bit shorter of a duration towards the end. Cause sometimes there's also dessert. They open up another Vietnamese room for dessert, and that takes like 30 minutes, and then people sprinkle out of the room to the other room. Um, I'd say on average, if I get booked for a 4 hour reception, I'd say there's around an hour, a little over an hour guaranteed of dancing time, which is why I always push people. People ask, can we book you for a shorter duration? And I, while I do sometimes often get booked for 2 hours, and they want me to do, let's say, from 10 to midnight, the last 2 hours. Um, and I'll sometimes do that. I don't book 1 hour anymore, even if, they can't afford as much, because I've done it before and I can't control what happens with dinner
Right.
service and the
Yeah, yeah,
timelines.
yeah.
And
Mm,
I've had it happen to me before where I'm booked for a certain amount of time and they're barely on the dance floor because of formalities. And then I hug them goodbye. And one time they were like, "Oh, is that it?" And I even, for that one, the planner asked me to stay 30 minutes later. And I did, as just
yeah.
a courtesy, because it was down, it was down the road from where I live. But,
Right.
you know, that's why I won't um commit to that anymore, because
Makes
I just
sense.
feel bad. And I've often
Yeah.
found that when they're partying with me for the full amount, especially when I do a destination wedding, and let's say I'm with them for possibly more days, or they're with me for a longer duration, I find that we feel like friends, good friends afterwards,
Right.
as opposed to me
Love
just
that.
being there for a short period, and then that's it. And I feel
Yeah.
bad because I'm sure you talk about on calls, value is extremely, extremely, extremely important. And when someone
Mm.
doesn't move forward with you, it could mean that they might have prioritized other areas in their wedding budget over you, or it could mean a miscommunication of value.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, we're looking like we're coming pretty close to our time limit today. So I want to say thank you so much for jumping on this first ever luxury musician podcast. This is like mega exciting. We've had a great chat. We talked about pricing and how you started and how you got into it and different performance things, and that's awesome. And there's so much more to talk about. So I'm really excited to say that Jason is going to be joining us in the luxury musician coaching calls. He's going to be joining in September to give people the opportunity to actually speak to him one on one. So if you are interested in actually talking to Jason and asking him any questions, you can drop me a DM at Dan Good on Instagram. And please do go and follow Jason at Essential Jason Nelson. Super exciting to do this today. Yeah, man. Do you have any closing thoughts for people who are looking to get into private events?
Yeah, yeah. Well, first and foremost, really appreciate you again. Thanks, Dan, for having me. This has been awesome, and I'm
Pleasure.
excited. I'm excited to chat with anybody who has some questions. I'd say something huge for getting into this industry is we see a lot of wedding vendors who try to capitalize on the fact that this is really a bulletproof industry for the most part. Like I don't think weddings are going anywhere. Um,
Right.
and it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. So because of that, people spend a lot of money. And I think that there's a lot of vendors out there, and hopefully not the majority, but there definitely are people who get into this industry because they see they can make money off it, but are not necessarily passionate about, um, you know, thinking about the client first.
Right.
And I'd say on getting to this industry, if you genuinely love your craft and want to share your entertainment and music with others at a joyous event, um, because as much as I love what I do and I put myself as the center of attention sometimes because that's what people book me for, it's not about me. Entered this industry by chance because I discovered something that I love. Sometimes, and I used to be a work to live, not live to work person. But
Right.
over the past several years, it's the balance is, it
Yeah.
shifts multiple
Yeah.
directions. So if you love what you do, you really won't work a day in your life,
Mm.
as the
Love
saying
that.
goes.
Love that, man. Yeah, 100%. You got to put the client first. You got to always remember that at the end of the day, you will make more money if you help more people, right? The more people you help, the more money you make. So love that. Just remember to always focus on the value that you're offering, and the rest will come just like it has for you. So congrats on your successes, man. And for anyone who's looking to level up their game in the business, give me a follow at Dan Good on Instagram, where I'm helping people scale their businesses to six figures, just like Jason. And I'm super excited to have Jason on one of the coaching calls coming up in September. So if you are interested in that, shoot me a DM, and we can get you on one of those coaching calls so you can speak to Jason and myself directly. So with that being said, thanks again, man. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and super looking forward to having you come on the coaching call in September. And also have an awesome time in Italy, man.
Thank you, man. This has been awesome. I'm pumped.
Cool. Awesome, man. All right. Well, everyone make sure you go follow Jason on Instagram. And yeah, we will be in touch. Cheers, man. All right. Bye.